G'day, I'm Paul. When I first drove the i30N, one of the first questions a lot of people asked me was, how much is the auto? And I would say, well, there is no automatic, it's just manual only. Well, they've changed that now because Hyundai's finally released the DCT, the dual clutch version of the i30N. And I'll explain why it took so long a little later on in the video. This one right here is the top specification i30N Premium. This is priced at $52,000. If that's a little bit too expensive, the entire i30N range starts at around the $45,000 mark with the manual, and that's a hike of about $3,500 over the previous generation. This competes with things like the Volkswagen Golf GTI, the Renault Megane RS, and the Ford Focus ST. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the video, you can use the time codes up on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. That's going to tell you every single time we review a car and it starts raining. Now, before we get cracking, I've got to apologise for the wind. It is bloody cold, bloody windy, and getting to be bloody wet very soon. So you've got 6 exterior colours to pick from. All of the non-solid colours are $495, but the rest are free of charge, which is good news. In terms of the design changes, you can see here the headlights look different. You've got different scoops down the side, and it's just a bit of a nip and tuck. It's not a major change, but it's enough of a difference to spot this out in traffic. Now, let me know in the comments section, what do you reckon about the baby blue colour? It's kind of the hero colour of the i30N range, and I don't know, it looked good when it came out. I don't know if it looks good now, but keen to get your feedback. So N badge just there, you have this 3D effect sort of waterfall grille. Off to the side here, you can see you have little ducts that shoot out down the side there. Full LED headlights with LED daytime running lights. Whip around to the side here. So you've got a set of 19-inch forged alloy wheels. What is a forged alloy wheel? Well, it's basically aluminium that's heated up and then pressed with a high pressure machine. And the advantage of that is that you get a stronger wheel that is longer lasting and less resistant to damage over time. Behind that forged alloy wheel, you have a set of single piston calipers and a rotor that's increased in size from 345mm to 360mm. So that's going to give you better braking performance and heat resistance as well. So I'll be keen to see how that goes. And a set of Pirelli P0 tires. Now this is interesting because the manual i30N was always at its traction limits. I'll be interested to see here with a bit more power and torque with this facelift whether we have the same issue with the dual clutch. So we'll see how that goes when we go for a drive. Down the side here, you have an indicator built into that wing mirror. You get a sunroof here on the top spec version, privacy glass, and then come around to the back. You've got a set of LED tail lights. I think these look really sharp, and I don't know, it's just an impressive design there. Unfortunately, you still have an incandescent globe down the bottom. I don't know why they go to the effort of putting LED in and then not down the bottom there. Light built into the spoiler, and then the spoiler up the top here that I think looks really nice and classy. So you can see the air sort of cuts through here and helps sort of keep the rear down. Twin exhaust pipes, and I hope, fingers crossed, that this sounds as good as the manual, because I loved the manual. It was like fireworks. It was fantastic. So hopefully they've retained that with the automatic, and it still makes all the big noises that you would expect from a little hot hatch like this. So we're inside the i30N. Let's start off with the key. So you've got lock, unlock, and then boot with a push and hold. On the back of that, you'll see the Hyundai logo plus the N logo as well. Proximity sensing key. Once you're inside the car, you've got a push button start to get you rolling. Visually, not a lot has changed here. It kind of looks pretty much the same. The i30N sedan, on the other hand, looks entirely different. If you want to see our review of the N-Line sedan, click up here, but you can see this kind of retains the rest of that look. And to be honest, this looked good when it was launched. Now it's starting to feel a little bit dated, and I mean, have a look at all this dreary looking material here. So it's kind of soft there, but it gets nasty the further you go down. It's all one solid color. It's just not a really nice look. You've got piano black around these edges as well, and around the edges of the gear shifter. But offsetting all of that is the design of the steering wheel. The N comes with these buttons down here, plus your metallic paddle shifters that are kind of cold to the touch, and then the N seats as well. Big N logo there, and then you have a mix of Alcantara and leather. So really nice setup there. Now, what about your touch points? So this is soft, and then over on the door it's a little bit firmer. How soft are they? Well, we have measured the main surfaces in this cabin with our gyrometer. If you want to see how this car compares to other cars we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description. Now, what about build quality? It seems okay. That sort of moves around a tiny bit. For the most part, though, this feels okay. And of all the people that I know with i30s, they're all still raving about how well put together they are. So, tick of approval there. Okay, infotainment, let's have a chat about that. You've got a 10.25-inch infotainment system, so this is the latest whiz-bang setup from Hyundai. This default screen here is where you can select your driver profiles, and it's kind of the home screen. When you swipe across, though, this is where you get access to your menus. You've also got the ability to use the shortcuts that are on touch-sensitive buttons beneath the screen. In terms of radio, you have AM, FM, DAB+, digital radio, along with a 6-speaker sound system. You guys have asked us to talk about the sound system in these cars and what I think of them. We don't have a way to measure them, so to speak, so it's just my opinion. Sound system in this car is okay, but not amazing. So it's not a branded sound system or anything like that. It is just a 6-speaker sound system, but it doesn't really matter because I think the sound of the car will overcome the sound system anyway. Let's quickly run through this feature here. So N mode, we'll talk about this a bit more when we go for a drive, but I love that you have all of these options on your infotainment display. So this is where you can select all the custom features of the custom driving mode. And this is basically a G bubble. So you can determine the intensity of everything, including exhaust down, whether you want it to be sporty, normal, or Sport Plus, your ELSD, what that's doing, the transmission. So really cool graphical interface to give you an idea of exactly what kind of performance you're going to get. Then you've also got the ability to customize all the gauges down the bottom of the screen there. So you can put whatever you'd like to see there. Your G bubble gives you a history of what your driving has been like. Then you also have a performance timer. So this will do your acceleration, lap timing, and that kind of thing. Then finally, performance options. So we'll go through these in detail when we go for a drive, but this is where you can configure your launch control and a number of the other settings that come standard with the car. In terms of smartphone mirroring, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is what it looks like. Not full screen though, which is kind of weird, but it is fairly quick. So you can see there it zips through those menus. And this is what Android Auto looks like. So again, not a full screen integration. But it is also nice and snappy and very quick. In terms of the other features, I thought I'd point out here that you have sounds of nature, putting the kids to sleep if the gunfire from the exhaust keeps them awake. You also have the ability to record a voice memo and customize your settings here as well. So yeah, really nice infotainment system, works well. It is just disappointing that the voice recognition doesn't do anything unless you have a phone connected on smartphone mirroring, and both of those require a cable, neither of which is wireless. So a little disappointing on those two fronts. Moving on to safety, you've got autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection. You've got an auto dimming rear vision mirror. Over on the wing mirror, you have a blind spot monitor. And then on the steering wheel, you have your lane departure warning, your lane keeping assistant, and a semi-autonomous steering function. I've said this before in a few of our Hyundai and Kia reviews, it doesn't really work that well, so I tend to just switch that stuff off. It can get a little bit annoying, especially when you're on country roads. It just doesn't really know what it's doing. In addition to that, you also have front and rear parking sensors and a rear view camera. I'll show you what that looks like. Look, the quality is okay. It's not amazing. You can see it's not overly sharp, but it gets the job done, and you also get guidelines that move with the steering wheel as well. Moving on to practicality, and we'll start with connectivity. Down here, you've got two 12-volt outlets and a single USB slot. You also have Qi wireless phone charging. In terms of storage, where are you going to pop your phone? Well, it can live down there on the wireless phone charger, or you can slot it into the cup holders pretty easily. In terms of the cup holders themselves, our little bottle fits in without any dramas. You've got teeth there to hold it in. Also fits into the door. I wonder, though, if our big bottle's going to fit. Let's give that a shot. Oh yeah, that fits as well. Pretty cool. Excellent, good news. And in terms of other storage, you have a center console here, nicely sized. Got a glove box as well, that's reasonably sized too. And finally, a sunglasses holder. Okay, what about comfort? You have dual zone automatic climate control, heated seats. You also have a heated steering wheel. The seats themselves, they're really comfy. They hug you in nicely and sort of get you ready for maximum attack mode. I forgot to mention the other cool thing, this lights up at night as well. It is disappointing though that they are fully manually adjustable. There is no electric adjustment whatsoever, and the steering wheel offers both tilt and reach adjustment. And what about our reach test? All works fine. All of these buttons and stuff are easy to reach from the driver's seat. Okay, back seat, what's it like back here? Well, let's start with our room. So I've got my driver's seat pretty far back, and generally with these sports seats, they eat into your knee room, but here I actually have a decent amount of knee room. Toe room isn't good. I'm sort of well and truly wedged there, but for the most part, even headspace is okay. For the most part, this feels like a good place to be seated. It is disappointing. There is not one USB point and no air vents back here whatsoever.
That would be nice to see those. But you can see that that colour combination continues back here. You've got the Alcantara and the leather as well. So that's pretty good. You have a centre armrest here with 2 cup holders. See if that holds our bottle, no dramas. And then that fits inside the door easily as well. Outside of that, you've also got 2 ISOFIX anchorage points, and that's about it. You do have that glass panoramic roof, which is great if you do have the kids back here. It gives them something to do, something to look at. But yeah, would have loved to see USB and also air vents back here.
Let's talk cargo space. So you have 381 litres to work with, and I'll run you through some of the cooler things in here in just a second. But you've got 12-volt outlet off to the side, hooks up the top here, a net to hold your cargo down, and then beneath the cargo floor you have a space saver spare tyre. Have a look at that. I love that strut tower brace. It is pretty cool. So this gives you that extra rigidity over the rear, and I think it just really emphasises that this is a pocket rocket. It is just ready to do business and go carve up some corners. So really cool setup, and I like the fact that they haven't hidden that or tried to sort of pretend that it's not there. How does it fit our bags? Let's give that a shot. So laptop bag in, suitcase won't go in that way, but you can turn it and then it drops in nicely. Now you can expand this space if you need a little bit more. I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll get rid of this first. Cargo blind snaps out pretty easily. And once you've got that out of the way, you can drop your seats, and that expands the space to a little over 1,280 litres. But keep in mind, this thing's going to get in the way of being able to load things in, and it kind of makes the space a little bit awkward, but it looks cool. Okay, we've hit the road in the i30N. Let me start with the noise before I tell you about the engine and stuff. Immediately when you switch it on, you can hear a bit of a burble, so that is good news. I was kind of a bit worried that with an auto they would kill all of the fun stuff that the i30N was about, because that's kind of what they did with the Focus ST. You went to the auto and all of a sudden it just sounded terrible, so big tick on that. Now, 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine. That's unchanged in terms of capacity, but where it has changed is in terms of power and torque. So it now produces 206 kilowatts of power and 392 newton meters of torque. That's up 4 kilowatts of power and about 40 newton meters of torque over the old version of this engine. So you are going to feel that behind the wheel, because a front-wheel drive car, every single extra kilowatt you cram into it, you definitely feel from behind this thing right here. And that's all mated to an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic. So I mentioned early on that there was a reason this didn't launch with the actual car. And that reason is because they didn't have a good enough gearbox yet. So Hyundai did have other dual-clutch gearboxes in their suite, but as you've seen in some of our other video reviews of Hyundai products, the dual clutch gearboxes really aren't that good. They're susceptible to overheating, and in an application like this where they provide a track warranty, it's not really something that you want to have within the car. So Albert Biermann, the bloke that used to head BMW's M division for more than a decade, he basically said, okay, let's start from scratch. We need a gearbox that's going to work in this car, and let's not faff about. Let's get a proper dual clutch gearbox, and that's what they claim to have come up with. So before we get on to how it drives and all that sort of stuff, what is the fuel economy like? So Hyundai claims 8.5 litres per 100 kilometres. Let's have a look at what we're doing. We are currently on a combined 11.2 litres per 100 k's. So a couple of caveats here. This car, when we picked it up, has been tested by some of my other team members. It's done a bit of highway driving, and we've done some performance testing today. So it is probably a higher figure than what you'd expect to achieve with this. But given the type of car that it is, I don't think that's too bad. Now, most importantly, what does all this feel like behind the wheel? What's our dual clutch like? So I'm going to give it a little punch here. Yeah, that is nice and snappy. I like that. That feels really good. Okay, I'm going to come to just a stop here, and I just want to see what it's like off the standing start, because this is one of those things that I just hate about dual clutches, how lurchy they can be. Okay. That's actually pretty good. I don't mind that. And just before I reversed up a hill as well, and it worked really well. I'm actually surprised. I genuinely thought this wasn't going to be very good, but that is actually pretty impressive. Let's talk about the ride. So this vehicle has international hardware, so the hardware is the same for other i30Ns, but our local ride and handling tune is bespoke to Australia. So in each of the drive modes that I'll run through in just a second, this has a tune that you'll only find on the Australian market. At this stage, it may end up in other markets at some point, but that gives you an idea of how well it has been put together for Australian conditions.
And right now the road that we're on is typical of a country road. It's got bumps, it's sort of all over the shop, and it's handling it really well in its normal mode. You do have a stack of different drive modes to choose from though. So on the steering wheel here you have a big blue drive mode button, matches the exterior color of this car, and then a big flag which is your N performance button. So your drive mode allows you to go between normal, sport and eco. Each of those modes will do something different in terms of the way the car feels. In normal, the steering's nice and light, the ride's comfortable. In sport, it gets a little bit more aggressive. I can feel that it is firmer, the steering feels heavier as well. And then in eco mode, it dulls everything down, so you're using as little fuel as possible. But then when you hit this button here, it puts the gearbox into its aggressive driving mode, comes up with a little N flag, puts it into ESC sport mode, and it's ready for attack. You can also hear it becomes louder from the outside. And that's a good thing because the auto has not lost its characteristic bark. Have a listen to this. There it is. You're getting, oh, that is so good. You're getting cracks and pops. Go back through the gears there, give it another punch. Oh. That is so good. Love also that you've got two things to note here. Up the top here, you've got some shift lights. So as you get to the top of that gear, it will tell you to shift. But secondly, the thing that really will help you if you do a lot of track driving, it allows you to pre-select gears. Often with these autos, it won't let you downshift if you're going to hit the rev limiter in the previous gear. So we're in second, and I'm going to show you how that works as we approach this corner. If I go to first now, nothing happens because we can't get first. But as I'm slowing down, if I grab first, it waits until first is ready, pre-selects it, then gives it to me as soon as we're good to go. So in that sense, it's going to serve you much better on a racetrack because it means you don't have to sit there worrying about what your RPMs are doing. All you do is grab the gear and it will deliver that gear when the engine is capable of doing it. So we are in our N mode now. Let's go for a bit of a punt here. See how it goes. I'm going to leave that in manual mode. The noises that are coming out of this thing are absolutely sensational. And I've got to tell you, this is absolutely hammering. So it is very wet outside at the moment. And in that sense, it's not going to have a great deal of traction. It does understeer a little bit until the tyres get warm, but that's all perfectly normal of a front-wheel drive car. It has so much go mid-range. It is really impressive. The other thing that it does as well that caught me off guard earlier, it will actually lift off oversteer, especially here in the N mode in ESC Sport. If you come into a corner hot, get off the throttle really quick with some yaw on the steering, it will then try and oversteer, which I think is just a really cool characteristic. It makes it incredibly enjoyable to drive, and I don't know, it just puts a smile on your face, and that's exactly what this car is about. This is the best sounding hot hatch in this segment. There really is not a better sounding hot hatch that sounds like that every time you let off the throttle. Now, I will call out that when it is in the N mode, the ride is bloody firm, and obviously this road isn't perfect for this kind of driving. On a smooth racetrack, it's going to be obviously more ideal, but in and around town, you don't want to be in that N mode. Thankfully though, you can set up a custom mode so that you can have light steering and soft suspension, but still have all the theatrics from the exhaust. So that is one of the benefits of the many sort of drive modes you have to choose from. I'll quickly touch on the brakes and the steering feel. The brakes are probably one of the most impressive aspects of this vehicle. So yes, they're confident. So if you sort of stand on the brakes, you really get a lot of feedback through the pedal. It doesn't go long. It's not overly touchy. It is just a perfect balance. And it means that if you are at a racetrack, they have enough heat dissipation to not enter into that fade mode where you don't have any confidence in its ability to stop. And same thing with the steering. Despite in sport mode it having a fair bit of weight to it, it actually offers a decent amount of communication. And it means that you always know what the car's doing. It's kind of always communicating to you, and you can place it on the road without sort of wondering what's going on under the front end. Let's talk about some of the features that are unique to the dual clutch gearbox. You've got N power shift mode. So if you take the throttle down to greater than 90%, it won't actually cut torque between gear shifts. So you get a more firm punch in the back. So I'll give this a kick now. And then as we grab that next gear, it basically just switches over immediately. There is no lag. It grabs the next gear and there is no torque cut. Often what you'll find is that you feel it hesitating as it goes between those gears, but plus 90%, and it's going to hit as hard as it possibly can. Up the front there, you have an electronic limited slip differential. Now what that means is if we were in any other front wheel drive car here and I punched it, it would just spin the inside wheel. Now, if I punch it, it pushes us wide because it is locking that front differential to give you maximum torque out of the corner. With front wheel drive cars that don't have a limited slip differential at the front, you'll find that all they do is spin the inside wheel for days and you don't actually get anywhere. The other feature you're going to find here with the dual clutch is track sense. It'll detect that you're on a racetrack and then it will put everything into its most dynamic setting. It'll give you the most aggressive shift patterns to make sure that you're having the most fun without having to stress too much about all the settings. And the good thing is if you go to the N performance menu, you can actually activate and deactivate all this stuff. So if you find that it is activating when you're not actually at the racetrack and it's getting a little bit annoying, you just switch all that stuff off and you don't have to worry about it. There is one other thing I want to mention here as well. It's called N Grin Shift. It's a pretty silly name, but button here on the steering wheel, you give it one push and it gives you maximum torque for 20 seconds. So it means you just get stuck into it and away you go. Okay, 0 to 100, Hyundai claims a time of 5.9 seconds. And I wanted to see how quick it would do it when we gave it a shot. The problem is it is wet outside and there really is no point us hooking up the V-Box and doing this sort of officially. So we're just going to do it with a stopwatch, but I will run you through how launch control works. So here on the home screen, if you select N mode, you go into performance options, launch control. You can actually set what level you want the launch control to hit at. So you can go all the way from 2,500 RPM all the way through to 3,500 RPM. Given it is absolutely sopping wet outside at the moment, I'm going to go with a lower RPM. Once we're happy with that, all you do is you hit activate and it will come up with a little activate light there and it's ready to go. Then you just hold the brake and the throttle and it will do the rest. What we'll actually do, I will disable traction control and stability control just so we can get a clean run. I'll just modulate the throttle. So here we go, let's give it a shot. So foot hard on the brake, hard on the throttle. You can see there, launch ready. I can hear it doing its thing. Let go of the brake. It's wheel spin city, but I'm just modulating the throttle and I'll stay in it. There's 100. That was literally the most pointless thing in the world, but we've done it and there it is. So we need to wait for some dry weather before we can actually properly test this out. Okay, let me put this back into quiet mode. What's the road noise like? Well, if you think I'm yelling at you, it's because I kind of am. There is a lot of tyre noise coming into the cabin, and look, that's the trade-off you're going to get with these tyres. The P0s are geared towards track driving, and in this instance, they're picking up a lot of the coarse chip surface here and transmitting that into the cabin. So if you're doing a lot of highway Ks, it probably is going to get frustrating in the long run. What about the ride? So it is firm in N mode, but in normal mode, it's very much on the firmer side of comfortable and it feels quite sporty. So it's not as jarring as something like a Focus ST, but it is pretty firm in that sense. And look, again, that is going to be one of those trade-offs. If you do want a softer ride, the N line is probably your better bet. But if you do want the full aggressiveness and the ability to go to the track and all that sort of stuff, this is one of the trade-offs you're going to make. That, yes, it is comfortable, but you will notice that it is quite firm, even in the normal suspension setting. Let's talk visibility. So the good news is it's exactly like any other i30. That means you can see clearly out the front there. Vision down the side is good with a blind spot monitor built into the wing mirror, and visibility at the rear is okay. It's just a narrow envelope there, so it is a little tricky to see out that back window. Finally, there's a turning circle of 11.6 meters. A little bit big, but it tends to be with vehicles like this that have limited slip diffs at the front. So the Hyundai i30N, tell you what, this dual clutch gearbox is an absolute winner. They have ticked all the right boxes with it, and it transforms it from being what was already a fun car, but sometimes not that practical, being manual only, to a car that comes with all the theatrics that the manual did, plus you have a competent dual clutch gearbox that isn't annoying like some dual clutch gearboxes. So it really is a win-win situation. It's also pretty affordable when you look at the price of some of the competitors in this segment at the moment. So even though it is more expensive, it is still quite affordable. So big tick of approval from me. And if you drive one of these, I don't know, I would just always have it in the N mode because the sounds that it makes are really, really awesome. So let me know in the comments section below, what do you think about the i30N? And does the fact that it's now an auto make it more appealing to you? Or were you always just gonna buy the manual anyway? I'm really keen for your feedback. Now, if you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel so you can find out every single time we drive little ripper hot hatches like this. But until next time, take it easy.